I have a privilege this morning, and I'm going to be reading a brief Torah introduction by our teacher, Rabbi Bob Seltzer. Rabbi Seltzer, just to be, he's being cautious about, going out places because of COVID, and so he and Cheryl are live streaming, and I asked him to write the Torah introduction, as he's done it for so many decades. And for those of you who are newer to our synagogue, Rabbi Bob Seltzer actually was teaching here at Temple Beth Shalom before I arrived here. And he was teaching with Rabbi Jack Bemperad, who was the rabbi who brought me here. And he is a professor emeritus of Jewish history at Hunter College. He taught at the Graduate Center of the City of New York. And he was my mentor and teacher as well as I was going for a doctorate in Jewish history, which I never completed. Incomplete, that's what it says we all are on these holidays, incomplete, right? I have a lot of incompletes. Bob Seltzer continues to teach here at Temple Beth Shalom. You'll be receiving an email, a course on Wednesday nights, which is on Zoom, and this year it will be on Jewish theology. But he has taught at the synagogue for over 50 years and has introduced the Torah portions at all of these high holiday services. So let me read this introduction before we read the Torah. The Torah reading for the morning service of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is from chapters 29 and 30 of the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy. In biblical history, the recently formed people of Israel, named after their distant ancestor, Abraham's grandson, Jacob, eventually renamed Israel, is about to cross the Jordan River to enter a promised land. The people had been liberated from Egyptian slavery and survived 40 years in the wilderness. In the promised land, they were to create a society based on a brit, a covenant, between these 12 tribes and the God who had liberated them. The authors of the Torah text did not invent the term brit, covenant. Historical research uncovered the antecedents of this concept in writings from Hittite, Babylonian, and other empires in the ancient Near East, in treaties which the kings of these empires entered with rulers they had defeated in battle, but decided to maintain in power as vassals, subordinate figures who would carry out the orders of the sovereign while retaining limited authority over their former subjects. This covenantal relationship seems to have been one of the models for the relationship of the Israelites to Yahweh, to Adonai, to the God who was their supreme spiritual leader. The Deuteronomic version of the covenant of Brit, revised and expanded, was applied to a description of the values that the book of Torah espoused. It was to apply to all levels of society, children and women, as well as males, elderly as well as youth, heads of households, and future kings of Israel, as well as outsiders, those whom the text calls strangers. In the course of history, the political and social institutions of the Jewish people morphed into new forms of leadership. A priestly class eventually gave way to a scholar class of rabbis. Later, other spiritual prototypes, such as mystics, pietists, and modern religious guides, such as our wonderful rabbis in Hastings. I'm only reading what Bob wrote. And the idea of a covenant between the divine and the human was employed early on in Christianity and Islam. Much later, it provided the linchpin for the philosophical ideas of the Enlightenment's concept of the inherent rights of the citizen, such that, in light of the concept of society based on a covenant of Brit, all citizens should be treated with dignity and care according to their inherent value. Thus exemplifying the values espoused throughout our Bible, Deuteronomy 29 and 30 and other such biblical passages articulated a conception and model that made human history especially meaningful, the ideal society of justice and comprehensive moral value. So the Torah reading is found on page 260.